if you are a long time listener to this podcast, then you should just be coming out of a therapy session at this time on a Saturday afternoon. And you should remember that we did a podcast solely devoted to the start of ITV's Broadchurch last year at about March time when it started, and we were raving lunatics about it. Well, not out of the ordinary. We were raving about it, and we were very enthusiastic about it. We were very lucky to get interviews with writer and creator Chris Chibnall, Simone Macaulay, who played the Australian hotel owner, Joe Sims, who played Nige, the aggressive plumber, and Paul and Quirk's dog made a brief appearance on the podcast as well. So we had it pretty well covered. We even did a podcast solely based on the final episode, which saw Matt and Gary satisfied and me just a tiny bit disappointed, jaded and angry.
As our 11 o'clocks at night.
Yeah. Okay, so we thought it only right to devote the same...
TV after dark.
we thought it only right to devote the same amount of time to at least the first episode of Fox's US remake, which was called Gracepoint. It changed Broadchurch to Gracepoint. It gave David Tennant an American accent. It made Olivia Colman into Breaking Bad's Anna Gunn. And Pauline Quirk's now got a Alsatian instead of a Labrador. Everything's so weird.
And Nick Nolte's in it.
Yeah. Before we get onto any of our opinions, I think it's fair to say that this can't be a well-balanced thing, because one thing about remakes is whether you love the original or whether you didn't, you can't unsee it.
No.
You can't not have seen Broadchurch and then...
That's a very good start.
I tried to think, if I hadn't seen Broadchurch, would I feel differently about Gracepoint?
Let's start with the start. Broadchurch and Gracepoint shared a lot of things in common, at least on this first episode. The first scenes were almost shot by shot. This might be because director James Strong and writer Chris Chibnall were heavily involved in at least this opening episode. And it did, blink for a second or lose your thoughts, and you may think you're just watching Broadchurch again. The first scene with Danny on the cliff top with the blood dripping from his fingertips was
I was
good.
Personally a bit... I quite liked the fact that they followed that opening tracking shot with Danny's dad going down the street bumping into people.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well.
I was quite glad. The one thing I didn't like was that even from that get-go, I didn't really feel I knew who these people were yet. Yeah, in fact, I did, because I knew Broadchurch. I knew who they were. Yet, as a viewer for the first time, I didn't really feel as well introduced to the characters as I did from Broadchurch.
And perhaps my problem as well, similar to that, is I wasn't emotional. I go on about this a lot. I don't know if I have issues, but I wasn't emotionally.
You do, but not related to this.
Yeah, well, I might have. I wasn't emotionally connected to them at all. And with the Latimer family in our version, the original version, there was so much tension and build-up and this feeling of foreboding about what they were going to find out, and I felt that emotion already for Jodie Whittaker and Andrew Buchanan's character, but not these.
No.
It's weird, isn't it?
I think one of the things is that I picked up on, and I don't know, I might have to go back at some point, is this episode felt very fast in the sense of the storyline that I remember. An awful lot happens in episode 1 of Gracepoint, and I don't know whether that much happens in the first episode of Broadchurch. I can't honestly remember.
Does. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, no,
It didn't feel like that. The bit that felt very rushed to me was the bit where she got out, the mum gets out of the car. It just felt very...
No, I think they did that well. If anything, that was one of my favourite bits of this first episode. I thought they did that better
not wishing to pick holes. Do you think Jodie Whittaker, the lady playing Jodie Whittaker's character, was a bit young?
Yeah, but I think that's not... I don't
Jodie
think so.
Whittaker's quite young. Jodie Whittaker's only mid-30s, isn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, she felt more like a mum to me.
Yeah, but Jodie Whittaker is only young. I mean, she's only a year older than us, Luke. She's born in 82.
So she's young.
I'll have to remember that when I meet her.
Yeah.
So I think she's probably about the same age. But I thought she was one of... Again,
Go on.
I thought she was one of the better actors. Her name is Virginia Kull, and I thought she, of all of them, I thought she did best sort of conveying the emotion of the character. Obviously, again, trying to separate her from Jodie Whittaker and just thinking about it solely as a different show, I thought, you know, she conveyed this emotion of a mother who'd lost her son better than sort of any of the other characters sort of reacted to the news.
The actor who played Andrew Buchan's character, the Mark Latimer,
Michael Pena.
He's been Pena, I think.
Yeah. He just played that aggressively to me. I just thought, why, you know...
Apart from when he went to look at the body, I thought he did that well.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember that Andrew Buchanan's character in the first series, you know, of Danny Latimer's dad, he was very kind of like the Jack the Lad, and when he found out there was an anger in him, and there was and I felt that the scene in the hospital in this version, though it wasn't quite as believable, there was that emotion where he said, "I'm sorry, I should have been there to protect you," which I don't know whether I quite got from the Andrew Buchanan thing. No. There was more that kind of hatred of an anger that my son has been taken away from me, not that kind of regret of I should have been there to do something about it. Thought that was quite well done.
My biggest disappointment was Anna Gunn, because although she had massive shoes to fill with Olivia Colman, you know, that role is hers. Anna Gunn, I know, I mentioned on a previous podcast how I'd only just finished Breaking Bad. I think I'm the only one of the three of us to finish that. I know what Anna Gunn is capable of. She can, you know, hold.
She was a bit wet, wasn't she?
She was very wet.
She didn't get that sort of grit that, you know, Olivia Colman has a good balance between sort of this sort of emotional side and this sort of more, you know, determination to do the job. And I don't think Anna Gunn got that second bit across. I think she was just on one level throughout, whereas Olivia Colman sort of gave a multi-layered performance.
And I think a lot of my issues with American dramas is that we have people that feel very human and very, you know, very realistic, whereas this cast were like they were just reading.
I have to say
script.
the other person I liked, and she wasn't in it very much, was Jackie Weaver, who played the Pauline Quirk role, Susan Wright. And I think she is a great actress. She's an Australian actress who was in a film called Animal Kingdom, which is a really good film, and she's good at playing these sort of sinister, older females. I mean, they've made her look a lot like Pauline Quirk in this. She doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's also for the US remake of Birds of a Feather.
She has got like a good sort of sinister presence about her, and I think when it goes on, I think she's going to be one of the better characters.
I must admit, when I saw that opening tracking shot of him walking down the street, I knew without even looking, that's the vicar, that's the Pauline Quirk character. They did do a very good job, you know, the way he bumped into her in the high street. You know, it was kind of, and she did look kind of like out of place, quite menacing, as if she was observing everything.
I mean, she could do a good sort of menacing drag of a cigarette, can't she?
Yeah.
Also interesting. Sorry, go on, Luke.
I was just going to say, the problem with remakes is we rip them apart for staying too true to the original, because we say, well, why don't they remake it? But we'd also rip them apart if they changed it too much. So they
I wouldn't. I'd like it to have. I'd certainly like it to have a different ending. I wouldn't. I'd like it if they changed it. Oh, good. I'd like it if they changed it up a little bit more. I think I would be happy with that. I wouldn't. I'd prefer that to a shot by shot. You know, like we had the shot, as Gary said, of him walking down the street. I don't think they needed to recreate that per se. I think you could have introduced the characters in a different way to how they did in Broadchurch.
Yeah. One of the things that I relate to is this idea of the shot-for-shot remake. I remember that in the first episode of the US killing, they did very much... I was just
going to bring it up, you mind reader.
Yeah, sorry. They did very much make the first episode a shot-by-shot remake. You know, the same camera angles, the same sort of rainy shots of Seattle as opposed to, you know, to Norway or to Sweden that it was in the killing. Sorry, Denmark that it was in the killing. Denmark, sorry.
Almost so close, so close.
But after that, they did make some very nice subtle changes in the US version of The Killing. They made the co-detective a much more druggy, a much more out for himself character. Whereas in the Danish version, he was very much, the partner of Sarah Lund.
I don't know how much they can change these characters, because I think now they've established most of them. Obviously, one of the changes is that the hotelier is an English character.
Yeah, but I think she seems like because she came out in the first episode was like, oh, when can I tell my customers that it's going to be, the Reach is going to be open? She seems still very much that central character, and I assume at some point they will introduce the fact, spoiler for Americans, that she's having an affair with the dead boy's father.
Unless she does. No, she didn't have an affair with the dead boy's father,
didn't she? Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought
in the British, what I'm saying, in the British version, if they follow that,
she had a.
That's where he was on the night, wasn't it?
She had a night with Tennant as well, which I got.
Yes, she had a night, and didn't she find Tennant on the floor after his heart attack or something?
Yes. Major spoilers for America.
Well, part of me wants to go on Twitter and go, "Dear America, it's the policewoman's husband." I want to tell
you. They've changed the ending.
It isn't.
Also, though, it can't be sort of a shot-for-shot remake, because there's another 2 episodes in this, isn't there? And they're the sort of...
That's right, yeah.
There's 2, yeah.
10, isn't there? There was 8.
Although their episodes will be shorter, because an hour in America has more... an hour in America has far more adverts than an hour in UK.
Yeah.
This was about 43 minutes, this was. My
but
version
ours
of
is
it.
49. Ours is 49, yeah.
Yeah, so...
But I think you'll find Americans have at least 1, maybe 2 more advert breaks in an hour than British TV does.
But what I'm saying is, the copy I had was 43 minutes, and ITV, preview copies aren't that much longer than that, I don't think.
Yeah. That is because it's the pilot, unfortunately. It will get cut down more.
Oh, okay.
I think an episode of The Simpsons, for example, is 19 minutes, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I thought it was about 22.
No, it's a heck of a lot of adverts.
And there's usually, for example, after the couch gag, there's usually a lot of ads, and then you get into the... So that they do it all differently. But anyway, while we're speaking of Tennant, that was a lot of people's criticism, was that his accent was all over the place. They didn't quite know which part of the country he was supposed to be from.
Yeah.
It was weird enough for me to see Tennant do American, so I can't really comment on whether it was a good or a bad American accent. You heard what I did at the start of the podcast.
Yes.
So I don't know.
And you lived in America for years.
I know, and no wonder I wasn't accepted as a local. Did you feel that
I didn't feel the accent was particularly annoying. I must admit, I didn't really pay much attention to it. In that sense, I thought he did okay with the accent, because it wasn't Dick Van Dyke British. It wasn't, a really bad accent. Okay, yes, it was a little neutral, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
I do.
I just think his character was a bit dreary and dire, in the sense of he really just looked like someone who really had the weight of the weight on his shoulders.
Yeah. What they've done just generally across the board is just boiled down the character. They've watered down all the characters to
perhaps
the sort of bare essentials.
That must be why we felt less emotion towards them, because they were watered down versions of our...
I think that's what it is. They've sort of, as we said with Anna Gunn's character, they've just put, Ellie Miller come back from maternity leave, sort of quite emotionally involved, and that's how she's played it. She hasn't added none of these actors, and it's a shame with Tennant, because he played the role, differently to how he did in the English version. But at the time when the news was announced, and I still feel this now, is why they felt the need to cast Tennant. Why couldn't they have got a different actor in the role? Because if they...
It's a shame, I think, that they didn't get him to use not his his mother tongue, his Scottish accent, but maybe the English accent that he does so well, because they could have played with that and made him more of a fish out of
an
water.
outsider,
Yeah, made him more of an outsider.
Yeah.
But that's something they pick, because even they did that even with him being Scottish in Broadchurch in that tight-knit community that he was a bit of an outsider. So it's a shame that they didn't use that, because I think it would have been.
But do you think Americans would have accepted a non-American in the lead actor role? You know, do you think it would have hurt them in connecting if they'd heard a foreign accent?
He wasn't English in House.
Well, no, he was. Well, the director didn't know he was English when he did his casting in House. You know, that's how good Hugh Laurie was.
I think, again, I bang on about this, as the only one to have spent a long time in the States, I found a couple of things out. There are two Americans, really, in my view. There are Americans who are, you know, if you say garage instead of garage, it blows their mind. And then there are Americans who you speak to and you show them like our version of The Office, and they think it's one of the best things they've ever seen. And I listened to a podcast today or yesterday from two American podcasters who were saying how awful Gracepoint was and how wonderful Broadchurch was, but they also loved Hinterland and Happy Valley and all these things. So it would have been a risk to play Tennant with an English accent, but it would have given the show something a bit more of a standout.
I just feel that they could just needed a fresh actor. I just think, you know, if you're remaking it, why are you bringing in, you know, Tennant, and why is, you know, all the, as you say, the Chris Chibnall involved and James Strong and is it Euros Lynn as well is involved? I think one of the other directors. And I think,
well, it's a bugbear, isn't it? Because you know, I imagine at the start they said we liked it so much and we want Tennant involved. They went great, and then suddenly somebody said, "Well, we'll have Tennant, but he's got to play American." I think the playing American thing must have come.
I mean, he would have had to have auditioned. I mean, the American picking system is a bit different. I think, you know, they would have had auditions, you know, for that role.
Do you reckon?
And he would have had to. Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, I mean, American
Surely
studios,
the series is a great audition tape.
Yes, but he would have had to go in and read for the part. I mean, because of course, if he turned out to do a horrible American accent, then they probably would have
kind of did.
Said, no, I'm fairly sure that even though he is the detective from the other show, he would have had to read for the part like everyone else.
I think some of the characters' names were interesting, but Emmett Carver will still be.
I mean, most
one of the most
have stayed the same,
choices.
haven't they?
Most of them are the same, but Emmett Carver, I've never met an Emmett in my life.
A few, obviously, you know, it's the Solano family now rather than the Latimer family.
But that's because of where it's based. I think.
Yeah. Well, no, isn't it mainly to do with the fact that the dad is Latino? I thought.
Yes, that's due to the location of where they've put the show. They've put it on the west coast of America, where there is an awful lot of Latin Americans. You know, that kind of, you know, the major city was San Francisco, where the reporter came from.
The problem is, having lived there, it didn't look a bit like San Francisco because it wasn't San Francisco. And
Canada,
they made no effort. It was Vancouver. They made no.
Well, they made
no effort to make it look. Yeah, but they made no effort to make it look anything like San Francisco.
Apart from the shot of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Well, yeah, but I mean, a shot of Tennant and Dunnigan walking, you know, by the Golden Gate Bridge or through that.
No, they're not in San Francisco. They're if you heard the bit where the reporter said when they were in the San Francisco Globe.
Well, they're in Gracepoint, aren't they?
They're in Gracepoint, and but they said.
Where are they, Gary?
Yeah, but they said it's how far away from San Francisco it was.
It's like Broadchurch and where were they? Dorset, were they? Is that right?
Dorset,
yeah. So they were sort of outside of the main hub of the place.
Yeah.
These were like, because like in Broadchurch, it was sort of like a fishing community, wasn't it? Primarily.
Well, it was a seaside town, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it got obviously, it was mainly a tourist destination, wasn't it? It wasn't.
Yeah.
And also, another thing that threw me was the old, as you say, Nick Nolte's character, who in this was like, you know, because David Bradley played like a newsagent and he had a paper round, and that was all, you know, fairly easy to grasp. In this, it's sort of like a wildlife.
Well,
thing,
he seems to run
movements or something.
Well, that was. I think they seem to do sort of. He seems to run trips out into the bay. In season, and then out of season, I think, as you said, he was running some sort of nature viewing. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I suppose there are whales in that part of the world. So.
Yeah, I suppose that's something making it different, but it just sort of seemed a bit more convoluted.
As you say,
than, yeah.
Why couldn't they have had the 7-Eleven? You know.
Yeah. The podcasters that I mentioned earlier, they are members of the press, obviously, and they got sent there are 10 episodes, as Matt said. They got sent 7 by Fox on DVD, and it is only on episode 7 that the story starts to change. What they described a tiny bit. They said in this podcast, which I might link to actually in here. They said in this podcast that there is a new character that wasn't in Broadchurch that they feel is going to take the spotlight.
Well, I was going to say that there was. I can't remember when he comes in, but the psychic character. I thought he appeared in
the first
episode 1.
He was there.
But he wasn't. Was he?
He was in Gracepoint. Yeah, he was on a ladder, wasn't he? He was fixing something at the hotel. He was on a ladder.
He didn't foresee
that he dropped
something.
Yeah, he was there, and you saw him at the end as well, didn't you? When they were all listening to the press conference.
I thought that was the vicar.
Final shot.
Oh, was
he? No. The vicar was there. No, the vicar passed him, didn't he? After he speaks to the hotel,
right?
There's a guy on the ladder,
right.
And he says, everything's breaking down or something like that. He said, didn't he? This place is falling apart, I don't know if he's a telephone engineer in this, but he's certainly like a workman.
Yeah. Like
the general consensus appears to be that anyone who's seen seen Broadchurch. Has really turned against Gracepoint for mainly the reasons we've spoke about in this podcast. However, I did get to speak on Twitter to somebody who knew about Broadchurch, knew what it was, but didn't actually see it. They are American. They said they gave Gracepoint a go and hadn't seen Broadchurch, debated on whether to view it first, but decided it would probably make them biased. So I asked, how did they feel about it coming in French?
My French is a bit rusty.
Coming in fresh.
Oh, fresh.
Coming in fresh. God almighty, we've been all over the world this week. Okay, this person said they enjoyed it. They said it had quite a Twin Peaks creepy feel. The extra characters made them think that. They liked Nick Nolte and they liked the Brit Hotel owner. They said they were very intrigued to find out what happened, but they did go out, because Gracepoint aired on Thursday. On Friday, they went out and bought Broadchurch on DVD and wanted to watch that as well. So I've asked them to get in touch when they've seen Broadchurch.
I did read a press review from someone who hadn't seen Broadchurch, and they were quite down on it as well. I can't remember if it was Variety maybe, or the Hollywood Reporter or something like that. And the reviewer hadn't seen Broadchurch and thought it was quite a sort of weakly plotted murder mystery.
I'll get up.
What surprised me was, although it aired on BBC America, which by no means is a big channel in the US, you have to pay for it as part of certain packages on cable, but 600,000 Americans did see that, and the majority of TV reviewers and people in the industry, sort of our counterparts, did seek out Broadchurch and feel the same way we did about it with such great affection. That surprised me. So it does make you wonder why they remade it, because so many people have already got...
I've got here a sort of selection of some of the reviews. Entertainment Weekly had said it was solidly plotted, dryly observed whodunit. There was another one that felt that David Tennant's performance was more pissy than pained, a cliche of the brooding, bad-mannered detective with a bum ticker. The New York Daily News said it was considerably more than a pale echo of Broadchurch, and said it was a well-paced, multi-layered story. A lot of people seem to like Anna Gunn's performance. The Huffington Post said it isn't much fun watching David Tennant struggle with an American accent when you've seen he's in Broadchurch, which I think, I think that's fair enough. And Variety said that his speech was a Yankee accent that takes some getting used to. So,
I think my problem with it was what Matt said. It felt so watered down that at no point did it grab me and shake me and go.
The characters are watered down. That's what I reckon. It's sort of bare like character descriptions, and they've just sort of taken them as the sort of bare bones, haven't like altered them maybe for the US version, added their own slant to them, like our British actors did. They added a bit more substance. I think that's the word.
That realism and humanity that I always bang on about. Over this last year, I've grown up. I've grown hairs and everything, and I've become a human being who is a bit more, who is a bit more cultured
Has your voice
when it comes
broken?
to TV. No, that's still a
That's
work
still
in progress. So I've sort of tried my hardest to broaden my TV horizons, and all this time away from America has helped me do that. I enjoyed Homeland. I enjoyed Breaking Bad. But I was trying.
It took you to leave America to watch American television.
Yeah, it did. I think they were too in my face the rest of the time. But I was just wondering if I hadn't seen Broadchurch, I was looking at this as a US program. Would it have drawn me in? I don't think it would have. I think there wasn't enough happening, and I didn't feel that tied to the characters.
I think I would watch episode 2. I think American television does a good introduction. They do pilots better than we do. This is a pilot. This is supposed to make you want to watch more. And they've done the online stuff. It's very reminiscent the way they've done this of a Fox program a few years ago called Harper's Island, which again was more which was a whodunit, which I think was on. I was going to say it was on BBC Three.
Bizarre that it was on BBC
Three.
Sunday
nights. Did do very much. Yeah, they did do very much a case of who is the killer. Tell us who the killer is. Tweet us your thoughts. That. Yeah, I did as well, and I didn't get to the end, but I think I watched about 4 or 5 episodes. So I do think America does the kind of glitz and the glamour of a whodunit better. I remember a television series called Murder One about 10, 15 years ago that really, went for the whodunit episode. So I think America can do that. And if they have changed the killer, in which case it's going to make it different, I think there could be an audience. The audience was down on Thursday night from what it probably should have been, but Thursday's not a great night. There's live football on in America, American football. There's a lot of other big shows it was up against, Grey's Anatomy and things like that. So
Scandal's also very big.
Scandal, very, very popular on a Thursday. So very difficult to tell whether ratings, how ratings fare.
Although I've broadened my horizons, all the shows that I do enjoy and that I have devoted my my time to, not yet, aside maybe from The Good Wife, not yet have I found a network show that I love. And I think maybe networks play it. I said aside from The Good Wife.
Alright, sorry.
Maybe, possibly.
Are we talking just drama? Because you like The Office.
Well, I like The Office and I like Arrested Development. So just drama. I mean, the ones I've liked, 6 Feet Under, Breaking Bad, Homeland, none of those are network shows. They're all.
I would suggest to you that if you went back and started NCIS from the beginning, you would like it.
I don't have 19 years spare.
Well, I know, but that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. Network television in America, when it's popular, when it's good, it gets, it gets.
It's like me saying to you, "Have you got time to go watch Coronation Street from the start?"
But that's the thing. I mean, I suppose in that sense, NCIS is like a soap now.
Yeah.
But earlier on, it had strong characters, it had strong plot lines, and it had strong action. It was a very good show, but of course, if you weren't watching it from the beginning, you're right, there is now just too much of it. And the character development now means that if you dip in now, you're scratching your head.
Yeah. I don't know whether Chris Chibnall really ever tweeted about how it went down. In fact, he hasn't spoken. And it is funny to me how the same people can be involved, the same writers at the helm, at least for this first one, and there's just something not there. And yet, how can it not be when it's the same people involved? Do you think it was a bit? Do you think maybe the casting was a bit rushed? And so
I don't think so. I just think it's the sort of the characterization. I think, and I know you said they're involved with the writing, but maybe it's like they thought that we did this in England and it worked so well. We don't need to change it. We don't need to sort of alter these characters for this new version. And I think as a result, it's just felt, as I said, a bit watered down, a little less substance. And how much do you think as well it's
a little more
done for the money rather than anything else? Is that
Absolutely.
How did you feel about the actual layout for the show, in the sense of the way in which they'd shot it and the village or the area that they'd chosen? Do you feel that was something that Americans relate to, that kind of small little seaside type village? Where I'm not sure, because I think in this country we've all got quite fond memories of like a Blackpool or a Bournemouth or a Brighton or a Skegness, whereas I don't know in America whether they have quite that culture.
You're spot on. If you live there, you get it, but there's a lot more of America that doesn't look like that, and it's not like Americans go on holiday in the same way we do and visit these places. So it may be.
At the end of the day, we are an island, aren't we? So
it wasn't so.
Very true.
Maybe it wasn't so picturesque to look at the setting, but of course it had to be the setting. Chris Chibnall always said, even to me on an interview that we did, that the story primarily wasn't a murder mystery. It was about the close-knit community and the ripples and the effect that it has on those people, this terrible thing that happens. I think they set that out well, actually, in the first one, because I was, from the very beginning of ours, I was very much concerned with who had done it. And I wasn't overly bothered at the end of this one who had done it. I
suppose that's where the Twin Peaks linking comes in well, because Twin Peaks started off as a whodunit, the whole who killed. Oh gosh, I've forgotten her name. Isn't that ironic?
Palmer.
Laura Palmer. Yeah, Laura Palmer. And again, that was a small Seattle town, a Washington state town, that was very much, a small, well-kept community, all based around this logging firm, and again, maybe you're right, maybe they could have been more selective in what they chose. Maybe they should have gone for something more resortish, maybe more like a Floridian town or something like that, places where people might have gone to.
Also, I mentioned it on Twitter, I will mention it on the podcast for those who didn't read it. I will never be able to enjoy Gracepoint because they removed the bloody Twitter line that I loved so much.
The what?
Because of the way... Bloody Twitter! The way Tennant rolled his R's when he found out that the identity had been leaked. Yeah. Bloody Twitter! I love that, and they got rid of it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Let's talk briefly about remakes that work. The Killing, I just watched episode 1 of the US Killing now, having watched the original version last night, just to compare. The only real advantage to watching the US one was that you had to do a little less reading.
Yeah, the lack of subtitles, yes, that does make it interesting, yeah.
I mean, we've talked obviously in length about The Office, which sort of only deviated from the British version in Series 2, really. The first... They did sort of did they do a 6 series 1?
Yeah.
And it was sort of almost like for like, but again, because it's a sitcom, they can sort of get away with that more than a drama.
Yeah, and I think as well, The Office didn't go down well. The American Office didn't go down well. Not because a lot of people had seen the British. In fact, some people I bet now still don't know it's an original.
Well, there's three comedies that I can think of where I've seen the pilots of, and I don't think they ever got past pilots. Number one was Red Dwarf. The Americans tried to remake that, and it was terrible. The second was the IT Crowd, which I would have thought might have translated to an American Office.
I'd love to. I never saw that. It was Joel McHale from Community.
Fine, it's on, didn't he?
Indeed, it's on YouTube. It's not actually that bad. I think that it's pretty good, but the Americans just didn't get it. And the third one, and I never thought this was work, was Coupling, because Coupling itself was kind of like a British... Coupling was like a British version of Friends. Therefore, I never really thought that the Americans would translate Coupling back very well.
No.
I think
they did a couple, didn't they, to long running? Go on.
They took Sarah Alexander, who recently appeared in Jonathan Creek, and of course the original Coupling, and put her in there. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Some of our older sitcoms they translated into long running ones, didn't they? Like Steptoe and Son. Till Death Do Us Part became All in the Family,
but they made
Three's Company became. Or Man About the House became Three's Company.
Right.
Now, Who's the Boss was translated the other way, wasn't it? Became The Upper Hand over here.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
My God, yeah.
But I think those things...
A recent example as well would be one that never made it onto TV, was the Gavin and Stacey one, Us and Them, which never...
all we got was the trailer.
Apparently, fun fact, it aired in South Africa. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Shame we didn't see it last week.
So it sort of does exist. So I wonder if we can find a copy of it somewhere floating around.
Didn't they also do? Didn't E4 show the oh god, blimey, names. the four blokes who go on
In-Betweeners.
Now, In-Betweeners America, thank you. And then
MTV showed that.
Skins
and then there
as well.
Well, not only Skins, the flipping heck.
I mean, the Queer as Folk one did well, didn't it? Queer as Folk USA.
Shameless. There was Shameless US as well.
Yeah, that
did
well. That does well, doesn't it? I mean, that's a cable. Yeah.
Occasionally things slip through the net, but I think the Americans have never tried to remake Doctor Who, unless you count that awful film with Joe McCann that was very Americanised.
There were 3 incarnations
of
an American remake.
Paul, it was a McCann. I got that bit right.
There were 3 American remakes of the Royal Family that never made it on screen.
40 Towers they tried to do, didn't they, as well, about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. But I will never, as long as I have breath in my supple body, I will never understand why the Americans feel the need to remake our stuff. We would never remake 24. We would never remake.
We have tried to remake a few of their sitcoms over the years. As I said, The Upper Hand.
Yeah.
We tried to do that 70s show that flopped. Golden Girls with Brighton Bells, that flopped. I think they tried to do Married with Children with Russ Abbott.
I think you. God, thank God that didn't happen.
Married for Life, I think that was called. It was a remake of Married with Children with Russ Abbott.
Halfway through, did he start singing "I've Got an Atmosphere"?
I think sense of humour is a different thing, though. I think. But
I suppose what we need to know as well, if you're listening to this podcast and you think that you know either a British to American or American to British remake that has worked, then let us know. Or one that you think has bombed.
Upper Hand there are around for ages, didn't it? That was on for about 8 series.
Yeah. I mean, it worked.
Another one I'm thinking of recently was they tried to do Prime Suspect, didn't they? With Maria Bello.
But why?
That was terrible.
In 2011. I was like,
Prime Suspect.
I remember watching it.
Was pretty popular on PBS. So
I mean,
like people didn't know what that was.
A show I mentioned to Luke recently, and Gary's probably seen this as well. The Closer was very similar to Prime Suspect in that it had a female lead and a lot of male.
I mentioned on the last podcast that I watched a program called Canterbury's Law, which to me was very similar to Silk. I think even though they won't have mentioned it, they will have picked up on some of the themes from that and the lead character. So I do think Americans watch British television.
They do look at... I think that's when they're doing these pilot seasons. They do look at what's popular in Britain. I mean, they tried Bad Education this year, didn't they, with Jack Whitehall, and that never got picked up, did it? And another one, I suppose, Outnumbered. They tried The Syndicate as well with the silly fat woman, as Luke calls her. That never made it past a pilot, I think.
That makes me sound awful, doesn't it? That does. Okay, so that is Gracepoint. I've seen one. I'm not going to watch the rest.
Can I ask for a score out of 10 for the first episode? Doesn't matter whether you link it to Broadchurch or not. What would you give that?
I'm being nice, a 4.
Okay.
5 or 6.
I'm leaning towards 6. I'd say 6.
Yeah, okay.
So there you are. That's above average, I suppose. If you take the mean, a mean is about 5.
No, it's average.
Well, yeah, no. So between the 3, therefore,
above average would be about 7.
That's good, surely. Anyway, we're not arguing about rating scales here. We'll do that off air. But
God.
in order to, but I mean, I think I will watch the second episode. And of course, we know it's coming to ITV or ITV2 or ITV7 later this year. Yeah, it is coming to ITV.
Okay.
Why I don't know.
Probably in advance of Broadchurch 2, I would have thought.
So they'll mess up the scheduling, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in American. So.
Broadchurch 2, Broadchurcher.
I mean, they spoke about this as well on the other podcast.
Broader and Church, yeah.
Is there any chance, like a lot of American shows will go, is there any chance that this does so poorly, not because it's a Broadchurch remake, but just doesn't interest people, that we actually don't get the rest of it?
That might be the case.
It's very unusual for Fox to do 10 episodes of something, therefore I believe they'll show it. If it was 24 and it was bad, they'd cut it. They wouldn't show you the second half or something. I just think with it only being 10 episodes, I think they'll stick with it. If they've put it on Thursday night, they know that it's going to struggle in the ratings until it gets an audience. They know it's not going to get... it's going to have to build its audience over the weeks. I tend to think it will last in America. Whether it gets a second series, that's difficult.